Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Good to see you. How has your day been so far?
Good. Tiring, but good.
Tiring but good. Oh, that's interesting. And where are you today? Of course, I need to ask you. I'm guessing you are at the castle.
I am at the castle. Yeah, I got back this morning.
It looks a bit like it, yeah, the background. I'm of course super excited to know that you are there because and I'm sure we will be talking about it a bit more. But let me maybe first introduce you officially. You're Ludovica Sannazzaro. You are a musical theater performer and an actress, and you were born in Rome, in Italy. But then, when you were 4 years old, your family moved further up in Italy as your father inherited the family owned castle, which is a 900-year-old castle. And now, with the numbers, I need to make sure I get that right. So, it was built on a 3,000 square meters of land and is surrounded by a 25,000 square meter garden, and that's in square feet, about 32,000 square feet for the castle, and 270 square feet of land for the garden. So huge, a huge house in that sense to live in. You got into the performing arts at a very young age and also studied at a musical theater high school, and then moved on to the US, where you studied at the AMDA, the American Musical and Dramatic Academy in New York City and also Los Angeles. Now, you came back to Italy roughly 2 years ago and joined an Italian theater company. You have also been part of shows like Harry Potter, a Yule Ball Celebration in Milan, which was produced by Warner Brothers. And in addition to your career in the performing arts, you also launched a career as a content creator. I think more or less exactly 2 years ago, you launched your TikTok channel, The Castle Diary, where you share about modern life in a medieval castle. And within an incredibly short time of only 4 months after going live, you had more than 1 million followers. And today it's 1.8 million followers across your TikTok and Instagram channels. So a big achievement. Congratulations on that. And I know you also still have big dreams, and that's maybe what we can talk about now. And in that sense, you are, of course, used to creating powerful experiences as you are pursuing these dreams. So again, a very warm welcome to this episode of Manifest Conversations, where we talk about first time and other life experiences that have taught us something or inspired us in a specific way.
Thank you so much. That was a brilliant intro. I couldn't have said it in better words, so thank you.
Well, inspired by you, right? So yeah, it's nice. It's a good moment, right? To really sometimes we forget to really also just hold for a second and recognize what all we have achieved in life. So
It's very true.
yeah. So shall we start with the castle? Is that
Yeah,
okay for you?
absolutely.
So, could you share with us a bit about your earliest memories? You know, like you were still very young when you moved to the castle, but when were you becoming aware and how that maybe your living circumstances are not necessarily the standard? And how was that for you?
I think it was late, like the few last years of elementary school or the first years of middle school. That's when I actually realized that it was not the typical lifestyle and setting. And it was probably because of my friends. It was very normal for them to be part of the castle life. I've always loved to just open up the castle and have a lot of people over and have friends over. So it was normal, but at the same time, we were growing up and we were starting understanding that there was something different about this. So one day, I remember this friend of mine was just like, "Did you realize that is not usual?" And I was like, "What is not usual? Your house." I was like, "What do you mean it's not usual?" "Well, you've come to our houses and you've seen, of course, that they're not like yours, but they're similar between them. So that is pretty unique." And I was like, "Oh, you're right." And then I think it was that, and then it was Disney, like Disney movies and stuff like that, because and Harry Potter, Disney and Harry Potter. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, and my mom used to read me all the Harry Potter books as like a good night story.
Uh-huh.
And I could just recreate all the scenes inside the castle exactly with the setting that it was written in the books. And the same thing I could do with Disney. So like all the Disney princesses, you are imagining all these beautiful castles. And I was like, but I haven't. So it was just interesting seeing how people normally can just imagine that while I actually had it. So I think those two things were the main moments where I realized this is this is just not the normality, but that doesn't mean that it's not my normality, because it's always been what I was like. My everyday life has been in this place. So it's a castle, it's true, but it's my home at the same time. And we use it as our home. It's just very big and very old and with a lot of history.
I wish I could ask you multiple questions at the same time. In my brain, it just goes like multiple lanes open at the moment. So, do you remember a bit how that felt for you when you became aware of that?
I think I was too young to actually feel in a specific way. It was just like a click in my head, in my mind. But after that, I was like, okay, now let's go back to just play together. Disney princesses inside the castle. Because even when they told me, it was just like a random thought for them, but nothing changed. It was just like, oh, it's different. Okay, cool, let's go. And that was it. And then it just became normal for them as well. I think in high school, that's when things started to get a little bit more weird, because you're more aware of what this is, of the history behind it, and that it's your home, and that you have to take care of it, and it's not just Disney Castle. So that became a little bit more complicated in telling people. I didn't really know how to approach the subject at the beginning. I was like, what am I going to do? Am I just going to go there and say, hey, hello, I'm Ludo and I live in a castle? That would be weird. So I started talking about it less and less. I remember when I decided to move away for high school, I had to meet up with the person that was going to be my roommate, and I didn't know her, and we just gave her and her mom an appointment here, but I didn't tell her that I lived in a castle. So she just got here and parked the car in front of the castle and came in, and that was the first time that we were seeing each other. So I was like, maybe I should have told her, maybe not, we'll see. But at the same time, what are you going to do? Like, the moment you realize that, it's not like she could freak out or anything. She was just like, oh, this is a beautiful house. Then we talked about it years later, because we lived together for 5 years. So, of course, we're very close now. And she was like, I was literally screaming inside, but I couldn't just tell you that because I didn't know you. But then at the same time, now it's her normality. Like, it's just how it is. Yes, Ludo lives in a castle, but that's just how it is. And there's something special about it, but there's also something very normal about it, because it's been part of my life now for more than 9 years. So,
and it becomes part of the people around you.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you say she wanted to scream inside, I assume because of, being excited also.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that you don't see every day. I don't know anybody else that lives in a castle, like lives in a castle, because there's a lot of people that owns castles in Italy.
True.
Most of the time, they're not part of the family that built the castle, because it's very rare for a family to have had the castle for from its construction till now.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people that owns castle, but they don't live in it. They maybe just renovated it and made it a luxury hotel or something like that. While this is first and foremost a home, then it's everything else, but it's our home. So of course it's something special. It's something unique. It's something that you don't expect when you invite someone, and then they get there and they see a castle. They're like, did we get the wrong address? What happened? So I understand the surprise in that and the excitement in that, but I also understand that it would be very weird for someone to like, hello, my name is it's amazing, you live in a castle. You normally don't do that.
Yeah.
Even if you did, it would be okay for me. Like I would be like, yeah, I get it. I would probably react the same way if I didn't live in a castle and I got somewhere and see that someone was living in a castle. So, yeah, the first time I told, when I moved to America, the first time I told my classmates that I lived in a castle, they thought that I didn't really speak English well. So they thought that castle was the only word I know to say a big house. So that when I showed them the castle, they were like, we are so sorry. We thought that you didn't speak English and you were just lying to us, or at least you didn't know how to explain. You live in an actual castle. I was like, yeah, I do.
It's so funny because sometimes, especially in the US, I mean, me in Europe, and you also, right? The houses are, I would say sometimes we have less space. It's a bit more narrow. In the US, it's often more generous in certain neighborhoods. And you would have villas that are a bit like castle style.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. So yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, and actually, do you think you usually you're proud? I mean, I wouldn't mention how I live, right? I wouldn't introduce myself and say, and I live in a rented apartment or so,
Yeah.
But probably with you, it's each time. I mean, when do I mention it? Shall I mention it? And especially as you are now very public, also through your social media channels. But
Yeah.
but this feeling of is it proud? Are you proud? Is it sometimes also reactions? Do you also get something like maybe jealousy sometimes? Have you come across any of these maybe reactions?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I think in high school it was so hard at the beginning, because I was coming from middle school. And in middle school, people are quite mean. Like, generally, that age is
No, teenage.
known for people to just be mean for some reasons. I don't know. We think that we're so, like, we're already adults, but of course we're not. So we just attack people because that's unfortunately how it is. So coming from there, everybody was like, "Oh, you're good at school." I've always liked going to school. I've always liked studying, so I was very good. And people were like, "Yes, it's because you live in a castle, so you pay your teachers." And I was like, first of all, the fact that I have a castle doesn't mean that I have money from it. Castles don't have trees with like bills coming like growing. Unfortunately, we would love that, but that's not how it works. And living in a castle actually costs a lot of money because you have to take care of it. It's like I always say, it's a big baby. You know, you have to be like behind it and around it all the time to take care of it. And also the fact that I'm good at school. It's I don't even know how that would be a connection. Castle, then you're good at school, but it was okay. But at the time, I was pretty sad about these comments because I was very proud of at least about how I was going like in school as a student and stuff. So it's like, yeah, you're kind of telling me that I'm not doing anything, and it's just because I told people that I live in a castle. So when I went to high school, I was in a complete different city. As I was mentioning before, I moved when I was 13 to go to this performing arts high school in Turin, which is about an hour and a half from here. And because we had very long school stay, we decided with my parents that I would actually move there and not come back every time. So I had a very small apartment there with this girl that I was mentioning. And I was like, how am I gonna introduce this? And if I have to be honest, I don't really know how it happened. At some point, everybody knew, of course, by the end of the first year, everybody in my class knew, everybody outside of my classroom knew. But I remember the first day of school, first day of high school. It's already something very complicated. New town, new city, didn't know anybody. The teacher that welcomed us was going through the register with all the names, and then she says, Ludovica Sannazzaro. I'm like, yes, present. She looks at me and she's like, are you by any chance related with Jacopo Sannazzaro? Jacopo Sannazzaro was a very famous poet in Italy in the 1600s. And yes, he's related to my family. So I was like, and he was like, oh, and she started talking about Jacopo Sannazzaro. And I was like, no, not on the first day. I really don't want to do this on my first day of high school. So everybody after that was like, how did you know, like, why do you have a famous ancestor? And I was like, I froze. I didn't know how to say it. And I didn't tell them at first. It took me a while. At the beginning, I told some of my closest friends. And then going on and on and on, it just came out because it's something big. It's something that people talk about. So people just know at some point. And I became less awkward about it, for sure. I started being more proud about it because I realized more and more about the importance of our family history, the history of the place, the rarity that it is that we live in a castle. All these things just clicked into my mind and became more clear. So I was like, I mean, it's part of me, it's part of who I am, it's part of who I've been and will be. So why should I be awkward and silent about it? I just have to, I want to talk about it. It's something that I want to share. Since I started my social media pages, it's easier because people most of the time ask me, so what do you do in your life? And I'm like, I'm a musical theater performer and I'm a content creator. Oh, what do you do on TikTok or Instagram? I'm like, oh, I live in a castle, so I talk about that. And people are like, you live in a what? I live in a castle. I mean, you can go check my pages and you'll see everything. But yeah, it's been in my family. And it just starts the conversation in a less awkward way. And I'm more like, okay, I'm just gonna say it because I've been sharing this for 2 years with the whole world. So it's more, it's just more simple now. I think it's more simple.
And you probably also see that it can be out there in the world, as you said, and it's not that people would. I mean, it's not that anything bad necessarily happens from it, right?
Exactly.
It remains calm out there.
Quite on the contrary, like
people even appreciate it. And,
And
so do you actually call it a castle in your mind, or is it home, or what is it for you?
For me, like every time I say I'm going back home, like if I'm in Turin for work or Milan, I say, I'm going back home. But sometimes people don't understand because I move around a lot, so they never know where I'm going next. So I have to specify the castle. But if I'm talking with my family, if I'm with my parents or anyone that is very close to me, I'm just going to say my home.
And how is that for you when you live elsewhere? I mean, I would imagine it's not in a castle when you move somewhere. How is that for you? I mean, I guess it's less space. Do you like that change every now and then, or do you miss the castle terribly in such situations? How is that for you?
I've been living in every kind of apartment, like a castle, a normal house, a tiny, 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 tiny dorm room in New York, like this tiny. A very small apartment. So I've had a lot of different experiences. I don't mind. I really don't mind because I don't need a lot of space normally. Especially because I'm not home a lot. So my home is this. It's the castle where I have everything, where when I need rest, a break from everything, I come back here. The rest is just a place where I stay depending on the work I'm doing. But I really don't mind. I love the city life, to be honest, and so it's easier for me to live in an apartment because I know that it means that I'm in a bigger city. But I also started to appreciate more and more growing up the peace of this place, the small village life. But I know that I can't. It's not the castle itself. I love the castle. I love coming back to the castle. I just don't love where it is, like the village it's in. Not because I don't love the village, but because it doesn't give me any opportunity, and I just need a lot of. I need to do things. I need to do stuff. If I don't do anything for a longer period of time, and I start freaking out. I'm like, I need to do something. And now that I have my social media pages, every time I come back to the castle, I always have something to do because I have to think about the videos and then film the videos. So there is always something to do. But before that, the castle was just like, yeah, you don't have any, like, you're just here. You're not doing anything else. So that's, yeah, I think there's beauty in everything, you know. There's beauty in living here, but there's beauty in living in a small apartment as well. It depends what you're doing in that moment and why you're in that place. But I've never had any problems with spaces and stuff like that, even though I grew up in a very big space.
And it's basically maybe also beauty in the change, right? That you
absolutely.
Sometimes it's this, sometimes it's that. So you have the options, which not everyone would necessarily have.
No, absolutely. And that's also why I don't have a place where I'm based in, because I just, for now, until I can do it, and I'm really grateful for being able to do this, but for now, since I haven't found my place yet, so I'm just grateful that I can change every week or even every day where I'm.
You do see yourself living elsewhere than outside the castle?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the castle will be in the family, hopefully, for a long time. And I can see myself living here permanently again when I'm much older. But because of what I was saying before, the fact that this village doesn't give you any opportunity, I can't see myself being stuck here in this part of my life, you know, especially for the job that I am pursuing. Yes. And it's impossible. It's just, they're not compatible. They're not compatible at all. The position of this place and what I want to do. And it's okay. I mean, I know that this place is here. It's been here for 900 years. So hopefully it's going to stay here for a little while longer. And my parents are always here. My brother will help me when it's going to be ours.
Yours, yeah.
Manage and everything. But I can't see myself being permanently here.
And with opportunities, you obviously mean the performing arts, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What I find very interesting with you, and I think that's always a powerful move in many areas of life, to bring things to you, right? I mean, if you don't have them, create them. So you are somehow performing within the walls of the castle with your videos and stuff. So you're bringing it to the place where you are. But then, of course, I understand that the big centers of that industry are outside the village, but who knows, maybe in the future the castle will become a center. I mean, we can always dream big, and I know you are.
I really thought about it, to be honest. That's something that I would love to do, like create something like a school or like a very artsy residence. I don't know, we'll see where it takes, but I would love that. And yeah, that's exactly also why I started my TikTok account, because I was kind of stuck during quarantine and I needed to perform, and my videos were my like performance place.
Uh-huh.
That's very true. But I miss the stage. That's why I need to move, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with that, actually, I wanted to also talk a bit about your dreams and ambitions that I've been mentioning, or let's say desires also. So some of the way I know it is that you always wanted to study abroad and that you have wanted to become a musical theater performer for a long time. And somehow I believe these two wishes, desires, dreams have fulfilled themselves, at least to some extent. So, yeah, do you still dream in that sense? And
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this is working in the performing arts industry is very complicated from a lot of different point of views. I've always wanted to move to the US since I was very young. I was of course influenced by all the like movies and TV series, you know. Things did really not go as planned when I moved there. I just think I wasn't really ready, and it was during COVID. It was exactly when COVID started, so that didn't help.
No.
But I don't regret at all that experience. I'm so grateful for that experience. I learned so much at my school, so much. But it was also just a very important experience for me, for my growth, and to understand more about what I wanted to do. Because sometimes during the time that I was in the US, I was like, maybe this is not the right path for me. Maybe I shouldn't do this. And then I always went back into doing that because that was the only thing that actually made me happy. So it made me doubt, but it also made me even more confident in what I wanted to do. I decided to come back to Italy for now. This is not a permanent decision because we'll see. I love Italy, but it's not the best place to be a performing arts, a musical theater performer, because musical theater is very new here. So we're just starting to understand what it is, how to do it, what shows to bring, and stuff like that. And it's really interesting to be part of this process, you know?
Yeah.
I know so much about musical theater. I've been wanting to do this for so long, and Italy's just coming to this realization. Oh, musical theater, it's interesting. So it's just to be part of this whole process. But at the same time, I can see myself going to London. I can see myself going to Germany and France, maybe back to the US, who knows. I would love to, I don't know. Traveling is also one of my biggest passions. So I would love to be a musical theater performer that travels around somewhere. I don't know, maybe on cruise ships. That would be great. That would be a lot of fun. I don't know for how long I could do that, because living on a boat, it's still complicated. But maybe a year, you know? You just go around for a year and you do what you love. Amazing. I try not to overanalyze my dreams, because then like I have it in my mind. I visualize everything I want to do, but then, and I work to get there, but I never get stuck into one of my dreams, because I know that I did that in the past and it wasn't good for me. And it's just something that I realized for myself. It's different for everybody, the way they try to achieve what they want. I have a beautiful visual mood board right there that I did at the beginning of the year. And I just look at that. I'm like, okay, yes, this, and this. But then the way what I want actually becomes reality, it's always a surprise. And that's the beauty of the process. So yeah, I think the thing that I would love now is working even more in the industry, doing more shows, doing maybe some bigger productions. I would love to start working in the movie industry, because I've also studied cinematography and stuff like that. So not just theater, not just musical theater, but also movies.
So creating first-time experiences.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And it's interesting what you're saying, that Italy is discovering the musical theater, because, as you said, it can be very powerful to be in that process and influencing it, right? Maybe even so. So that's yes, for sure, a very interesting time to be in the place where you are right now. And otherwise, I understand you just also like to go with the flow, right, and take opportunities as they come. And but what sparked your ambitions or your desire to be in the musical theater industry?
I think I've always been very passionate about arts in general. I wrote my first song when I was 4 years old. It's called in Italian Il fiore cresce, l'amore no, which means the flower grows, love's doesn't. Very powerful, even if I was 4 years old. The song is very bad, of course, but it was funny. I found this video of me singing it. I took my parents' camera and just like did this to record myself while singing this horrific song. But from there, I just continued. And then the thing that actually sparked in me the desire of doing this was my parents took me to see Phantom of the Opera in London. I didn't really speak English at the time. I didn't speak English at all at the time, to be honest. I was very young, and I understood everything that was going on. And I was like, I want to be able to convey a message or a story to people that don't understand what I'm saying the same way that they did to me. The thought of, I was very young at the time, so I couldn't, like, this thought wasn't very clear in my head, but I just knew, I was like, oh, that. Then in time doing it, I realized that that was the truth behind it, why I decided to continue doing this. Like, I wanted to be able to do the exact same thing, because it's very well known that we say the music is a universal language, but it truly is. Like, this is proof that it doesn't just touches you inside. It just gives you a clear idea of what is going on, even if you have no idea what they're saying. So I think that's what sparked the desire and the want of doing this in me.
Very nice and powerful what you're saying. And interestingly, it makes me think of something that has the origin, probably, I wouldn't know for sure, but in Italy with the opera, right? For example, I am not as fluent in Italian that I would really understand sometimes what's sung, but the way it can touch and connect, or music in general, as you just said.
Absolutely.
Very, very nice. Now, if I make a little bit of a jump back to social media again, were you like strategic in your approach to it? Did you consciously do it? You know, these many followers, I guess most people would be very interested in that. Or can you explain how that success happened?
Yeah, no, I had no idea what I was
your
doing.
secrets.
No idea what I was doing. I had the thought in my mind for some time. I've told some friends, I was like, hey, I'm thinking about maybe I should open something to talk about this. And we're like, oh yeah, go for it. I mean, why not? And I was like, okay, sure. So I started, and I had this friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, that helped me, especially at the beginning. I probably wouldn't have done it without him, because I had a lot of doubts. So I was like, and I always everything I'm better now, but I used to want everything to be perfect. So I was like, I don't know how this is going to be. And I had no idea how it was going to be. So I was like, I'm not sure. I was like, just go for it. Just do one or two, and then you can just call it a day, and that's it. And I was like, okay, sure. So I did the first video. Bad, terrible video. Never see it.
In your opinion?
No, it's a bad video. It's like more than a minute long, and it was crazy at the time to do a more than a minute long video on TikTok. Bad quality was nothing, and it just said, "Have you ever wondered what it's like to live in a castle?" That was the question.
I like it.
Didn't get any views.
Oh, really?
But I had fun doing it, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna record a couple more. And I did. And then the first video that kind of made me realize that people were interested was the third video that I uploaded. It was a trend at the time. People would just like go around their house, show something special about their house. And my take on it was like, when you live in a castle, so you just walk around because everything is special. And that became viral at the time. Viral because I had 0 followers, so it got like 20,000 views, and I was like, oh my God, I'm famous. Of course I wasn't. And then I started to get the hang of it. I understood more and more what my followers wanted, what I wanted to share, because I wasn't sure at the beginning. I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to do this, but what do I want to convey? What do I want to tell? Which story do I want to present? Which part of the castle do I want to... a lot of questions. And everything became more clear the moment that my videos started to go viral, because people had a lot of questions, of course, in the comments. And I was like, okay, let's write down all the questions and understand how can I make a video or videos in general, contents in general, that are going to answer these questions. And I realized that the thing that people didn't know was, first of all, how is it possible for a person to live in a castle nowadays? Most people think that if you live in a castle, then you're part of royalty, because that's what TVs and films teaches us. So that was important for me to tell them that's part of the truth, but there's so much more. So I started sharing about the history of aristocracy and nobility, the different titles, what they meant. And then I started doing this series that it's actually what made me go very viral. What people think versus what it is. So it was what people think it is to live in a castle versus what it actually looks like. How people think I have dinner in the castle versus what it actually, all of these type of things. And everybody's always very disappointed about how it actually is, because they want the big skirts and the big gowns and butlers and all these things. I'm like, yeah, that's just not my truth. There is, of course, like if we're talking about the royal family, of course they're going to have butlers, and probably they have a dress code every time that they have dinner. We are a normal, everyday family. I'm a very normal 22-year-old. We're not royals. So this is how it is. Of course, we have some special things, like because my family, it's a very old family. So we have some traditions, some things that are not quite normal for other people. And I do have a lot of gowns because I have fun wearing them. But that's what I just really wanted to share, the reality of living in a castle with all the difficulties behind it. That got me a lot of hate, actually. Because people think that I complain when I talk about not the pretty sides of living in a castle. That's the truth of things, you know. Everything have pros and cons. Everything. Same as with living in a castle. And the moment when I say, you know, it can be very tiring, there is a lot of work that you have to put behind it. It's a lot of money. You have to be careful about everything. Then people are like, oh, so you're like, you can give it to me then if you don't want it. I'm like, go a little deeper than that. Try to understand what I'm trying to say. And people do sometimes, and people don't sometimes, and that's how social media works as well. So you just have to be okay with it. The moment you decide to do without being hurtful, because a lot of people just decide to be hurtful for no reason, and then when that happens, I normally respond to them in a very polite way, but just like, hey, if you want to be hateful or hurtful, you can go somewhere else doing that, because this is a very safe space and it should be positive. So I don't want this. You don't know me. You also don't, people think that they know you the moment that you're
I just want to say.
they're so certain that they know everything about you. You get used to it. It's just, sometimes I get comments and stuff, I'm like, wow, it's really sad. So sad. But I'm going to continue doing it because I just really like my project. I'm really proud of what I created. So I'm not going to stop because people sometimes just want to be mean for no reason.
And yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that. It's actually this interplay between these poles, right? Almost, it's basically in your own work also. You know, it says on your account basically a Disney princess, but then you constantly also challenge that stereotype. And so you yourself are in between these two kind of poles, and then you receive or you experience different reactions also from people. So it's basically the world, right? We have dark and light, we have we have all of it. So and for sure you also get the appreciation, and it's actually really nice. I feel the self irony you have in there, and so humor basically. And I wanted to ask you, in the theater company that you are currently working for and with, it's also, I think, fairy tale focused a lot, right? But more or let's say less of a Disney version of fairy tales, but more of a raw fairy tale focus on fairy tale. So can you share a bit about that and how that relates to you maybe and your life and how you integrate that?
They are a very young theater company. I actually know very well the three directors, as they were in my same high school. So I worked with them when they first opened the theater company. I was still in high school, and then of course our path just changed because they continued in touring. I moved around, and then last year a colleague of mine, while I was working in Harry Potter, she was like, oh, you know, I'm gonna start working with this theater company. I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. I know them, we should go see a show together before you start working with them and before I move to LA. So I went there and I saw them, and they were like, oh, hi Ludo, how are you, when are you coming back and start working with us? I was like, I don't know. And then last summer in July, I think, they called me and they were like, hey, I know that you're back. We need a sub for Grease, the musical. Can you please come and do it this day? And I was like, sure, let's do it. And then after that, I started understanding more about their project. So yes, they do some like standalone shows such as Grease and some others, but their main focus is this. It's very complicated. I'm still trying to understand it, but basically they have this fairy tale world. There are all the very well-known fairy tales such as Cinderella, Snow White, Little Mermaid, but they're all linked together. So it's a huge, like, the fairy tale verse. And they're very raw. There is a lot of, like, Cinderella is not that perfect princess that we all know. Snow White is actually a warrior. Like, there's so much. Little Mermaid, we did a version with a Little Merman because we talked about the reality of Hans Christian Andersen, which was the writer of Little Mermaid. He was gay and he couldn't tell that. So he used Little Mermaid, the story, to basically share his love for the person that he loved and couldn't love because of the time. So we decided to give this homage to him, and we create the story between the Little Merman that we called Christian for Hans Christian Andersen, and the prince that was Edward, that was his lover. So, and then a lot of other things that are not in the actual story. And I really like this idea. The other thing is we do shows in chapters. So we have Cinderella 1, 2, and 3. There are 3 different shows. It's a trilogy, but it's a theater trilogy, and it's something that you don't really see. It's like a TV series, but in theaters.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
And I really like this idea because all these princesses that we're used to, all the Disney versions of the princesses, there's always like the happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they don't really have a lot of layers.
Yeah.
They're amazing. I love Disney princesses. Just let me say this because then people don't understand exactly what I'm trying to say. But I love Disney princesses because they normally symbolize one specific thing: courage, love, passion, kindness. But normally that's it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's important, but it's not real.
It's not real.
Because people have more inside them.
Yeah, yeah.
But I like the fact that in our company, we create that more. We have all those little things. So Cinderella is still very kind and generous, but there is also fear and disappointment. There's so much. It's a real character now. It's a real person that could be in the world and do things. So I think that's what I like the most about this retellings. Then they're just so fun to do. We are about to go on with Snow White second chapter. And I don't know who my character will be yet, and I'm really excited to learn more about it. And I know it's going to be such a difficult show because our director, he also writes everything. He is crazy. We love him, but he just has so many ideas. And sometimes we're like, wait, we didn't get it. Please give us something to try and enter in your head so we understand more. But we're really excited. We're going to start rehearsal next week. So
very nice. And it's really interesting to hear how innovative it is, how much it is about us and our time, and at the same time how it shows the timelessness of these fairy tales, right? Because I think that's in the end what they're all about. They have accompanied generations of people, and there's this morale still about it, and maybe today we can show more of the truth even than in the time when they were first written down. So yeah, that's very, very interesting to hear about. Now, to wrap this up, maybe let's talk a bit about these dualities again, the two worlds. What do you think? It's a playful one. How do you think people might think you would have spent the day today, and how did you really spend it? If you can play that, that would be fun.
This is how people think I spent it. I woke up.
It's a Sunday, we should say, right? I don't know if that matters, but it's
a Sunday. Yeah, it's a Sunday. So people probably thought that I had someone that opened my windows with a tray for my breakfast that gave it to me in bed.
And what breakfast?
Right, let's see. They probably something simple, maybe a cappuccino with a croissant or something like that, and then a flower on it. You know, flower is always a very nice touch. And then they probably thought that I had a lazy morning, maybe went down into the family archives and just went through some of the documents, which I actually do. That's something I do a lot. And then had a nice dinner in the main dining room with butlers that came.
And with portraits on the walls.
Exactly, all that. So yeah, I think that's what they thought. The reality is, I woke up this morning on a friend's couch because yesterday my theater company called me and they were like, please, we need your help. We have 2 shows today. And our lighting designer is sick. And I was like, guys, I'm an actress. I've never done lightning design, and so I have no idea. And they were like, "Please, please, please come." So I went.
A first time.
So I went there yesterday, and I learned how to be a lightning designer and technician. So I did the lights for 2 shows. I was really impressed with myself because it was something I never thought I would do. So I was there, but it was quite far away from here. So I asked a friend in the company if they could host me the night. So I slept on a friend's couch, woke up this morning around like 9 because we went to bed at 4 a.m. because we had to go back after the shows and everything.
And the adrenaline, and of course you were partying and stuff, I guess.
Exactly. So woke up, had breakfast with her, and then she took me to the train station, got on a train.
No flour for breakfast.
No flowers, no nothing, absolutely. It was just coffee and milk. Went to the train station because no, I don't have a driver, as some people think, nor a horse carriage.
Horse carriage.
I would love, that's something that I would love. But no, I took the train because I take a lot of trains, actually. A lot of trains. Especially to move around from here, I only take trains. So I took the train, got to Alessandria, which is the nearest train station. My mom came and picked me up, came back, had a very quick lunch, showered because I was gross, and now I'm here.
Well, I'm so glad you made it back home or back to the castle, whichever you prefer today. It was so good to talk to you today. Thank you so much for sharing so openly about your life or your lives, I should say. And I'm looking forward to learning what role you will get in the next chapter of Snow White.
I'm really excited as well. I will let you know as soon as I do.
All the best to you, and thank you
so much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.